Bones of a Giant Race. The Daily Morning Journal and Courier, New Haven, Connecticut, October 25, 1895. Lately unearthed in the wilds of northern Minnesota, a buried family consisting of a 9-foot father, a mother nearly as tall, and an infant that must have measured 5 feet. As Minnesota has grown older as a western state, there remain many vast areas scarcely explored by white settlers, known only through fragmented reports from hunters and guides who have crossed those regions. This is particularly true of the extreme northern portion of the state, which until gold was discovered there, was as little known as the vast wildernesses to the west were when the Pilgrim Fathers landed at Plymouth Rock, spurring a rush of settlers and prospectors that revealed thousands of acres of new land rich in farming and minerals, and along with increased settlement, many strange finds suggesting that northern Minnesota was once inhabited by unknown peoples and animals. The area around Ely, in particular, has yielded an abundance of relics since farming began, with new discoveries appearing almost daily and providing evidence both of ancient men of great stature and of animals dwarfing those of today, as well as signs that these prehistoric inhabitants possessed notable skills rather than being simple laborers. Thomas McKinster has recently taken up a farm near the mouth of the Little Fork River in Itasca County. At one corner of his farm stood a knoll, possibly 150 yards across, covered with a heavy growth of pine. On top of this knoll was a huge bird, or rather the outlines of one, made of stone not found in any other locality in the state so far as known. In digging into this knoll, it was found that the place was once a burying ground for a prehistoric race. Human bones of great size were found, and the positions indicated that the original owners had been buried in a sitting posture. It was an easy matter to distinguish the bones of the male from those of the female, for they were larger, more massive, and had preserved their shape better. In some cases, the bones fell to pieces at the slightest touch, while in others they were soft and spongy, the earth seemingly having entered the cavities formerly occupied by the marrow and furnished a support for the shells. In one grave were found the bones of what were once probably father, mother, and child. The huge bones of the male were about a foot distant from those of the woman and child, which were locked in a close embrace, as though the mother had drawn the infant to her bosom just before death came. The larger bones were those of a man who, in life, must have been nearly, if not fully, 9 feet in height, while those of the woman showed that she had been no dwarf, measuring as they did 8 feet 4 inches from the bottom of the bones of the foot to the top of the skull, which was larger, flatter, and considerably heavier than the skulls of people today. The child must have been very young, for its bones went to pieces as soon as exposed to the air and covered the bones of the mother with a fine, white powder. By measuring the outlines of the bones of the child, it was found that the infant had been nearly 5 feet in height, which is really not so bad for a child of tender years. In the skull of the woman was a big dent between and slightly above the eyes, showing that she had met death in a violent manner. By the side of the man lay a stone weapon, shaped something like an egg, with a depression cut around one end in which a thong might have been twisted. It was of the same kind of stone as the bird on top of the knoll or mound, a hard, blue-colored granite, almost as close-grained as steel. Some feet from where these bones were found were the bones of a man, alone and in a standing position. The right arm was broken and hung by his side, while the left was raised aloft as though to hurl something from him. At the foot of this skeleton, if skeleton it could be called, for the bones were little more than dust and held in place only by the clay with which they were surrounded, were several pieces of peculiarly colored pottery. Some of these pieces were broken to bits, but the edges were as sharp as though the vessels were of modern construction and freshly broken. 2 of these vessels were intact and were preserved by the finder. One was a dainty pitcher, almost as thin as an eggshell, and around the outside was traced a delicate vine in a raised blue figure which could not be scratched with a sharp-bladed knife. The other vessel was a shallow pan, about 7 inches across the bottom and a trifle less across the top, with pictures of strange-looking birds traced in relief on the bottom. In a few of the graves have been found copper and bronze implements of various kinds, showing a finish which cannot be surpassed by the most skilled workmen of the present day. The absence of jewelry and other articles of personal adornment shows that the people who were buried there differed in some respects, at least from the common North American Indians, who were and still are buried with their jewelry. This story about a race of giants found under a mound topped with a bird made of stones immediately brought to mind the rock eagle effigy mound in Putnam County, Georgia. Like the one described, Rock Eagle is constructed from thousands of stones, shaped like a massive bird about 102 feet long, 120 feet wide, and standing 8 to 10 feet high. Nearby is the smaller Rock Hawk effigy mound, located just 13 miles southeast near Lake Oconee. Could these sites also have been built by a race of giants? We may never know. Thanks for joining me on this journey. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe to support the channel. Keep camping and exploring the mysteries of our world.